What's up, guys? It's been a while since I made a YouTube video, and in this one, I'm basically just going to go through the steps I would take if I was starting from beginner, with no experience, no rowing training at all behind me, going from that through to the PBs that I hit, which was on the erg was 5:51, and then for 5K it was 15:28, and then in terms of maybe best performances in the boat was one race I did at a World Cup, and also doing well at some trials and getting into the GB team. So just gonna go through unscripted, without any edits. That's been a big reason why I've not been posting it, is because I've probably just been letting perfect get in the way of good recently. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. So for a bit of context, before I started rowing, I used to play ice hockey. I started when I was like 19, so we could maybe just go through it as if I was 19 again and coming in from hockey. But again, it wouldn't really make a difference what background you came from. Hockey did give me, I think, a good base fitness. It's very interval on and off, but I think this can apply for whatever your background is. If you just picked it up for the first time, you've came in through CrossFit, or you've been rowing for 20 years, I think all these lessons can apply to you. So the first thing I would do, and again I would be taking this in the context of you maybe don't have support around you. I would start looking for any kind of support you can get. So that can be communities online. It can be people that are around the corner from you. For example, when I was looking for some competition when I was getting started, at one point in my career I was driving from Glasgow to where Edinburgh Uni trained, so that I could train against them. So you don't just have to look to your sort of immediate club to get support. So that would be the first thing. Some sort of eye, the most experienced eye you can find. I would just reach out to them and say, I'm looking to achieve these goals. I have these ambitions. Is there any way that you or someone would be willing to support me, or even just give me a bit of guidance? So that would be the first thing I would do. Look for any support you can. If it's somebody volunteering once a week or once a month, or the odd call, just getting your name out there can be really helpful. And people, if you're passionate and you wanna go for something, then people will be keen to help. Yeah, so in terms of like the actual specifics of what I would do with training, I think the first thing I would make sure that I would do is figure out how to create or build a more robust body. So the most important thing for getting faster, to getting towards 5:51 on the 2K, for me, what I learned and getting to the boat speeds I did, was being able to train consistently. Being able to to be able to train consistent, you need to be very robust and durable to go through the mileage required. So starting off, I'd make sure that I had balance and mobility in my hips and in my shoulders. So I'd start with lots of squats and deadlifts. I'd probably start with maybe some goblet squats, moving through the range for a few weeks and just making sure I can do that with good form and good strength, and just gradually start to increase the load. I would do lots of activation work to get my hips warmed up, not just your quads and your glutes, but the sort of lateral planes, I think, if that's the right word for it, just so I can be sure that my body is like ready to go into some really big training. I'd spend probably the following 6 months starting off maybe rowing 3 to 4 times a week. I'd be doing around, say, 20 to 30 minutes. The mistake I made was jumping straight into the deep end, and I was just a dead keen bean and started doing 18Ks right away and just pulling as hard as I could as well. I'm pretty sure I was on to like 150s for UT2 at the time, pretty early, and that was just as hard as I could go basically every session, and it got me improvement for the short term, but yeah, I was injured pretty quickly and for a long time. So that would be, again, that's maybe where my bias is coming in. I got injured very early, so this is why I'm talking a lot about creating a robust structure in your body so that you can get through this training. So yeah, I'd probably start for the first 6 months doing around 20 to 30 minutes of UT2 and do maybe like one of those rows, make it a really hard row. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, especially at that stage. You know, I'd be looking for 8x500s, 30 minutes at rate 20, 3x2K, you know, all the classic stuff. I would just be getting on and working hard, trying to get an idea of where my fitness is at. From there, you know, maybe 6 months in, I'd start to build towards rowing every day and then adding in some cross training. So at this stage, again, this is maybe, you know, assuming I'm going to be full time, assuming at the time I was doing it around university. This is with the kind of idea that you know, to get to 551, to get to, you know, international level, you need to be able to train full time at some point. So this is how I'd go about it. But basically build up to a point where I'm rowing 5 or 6 times a week and making those sessions, you know, the long distance stuff, 16K to 18K. I'll try and be getting close to that fairly soon. I'd be supplementing that with some cross training as well, and try and get to probably around like 10 sessions a week within 6 months. You know, lots of volume on the bike probably and running, and then lifting probably 2 or 3 times a week. So I don't even know what that would be for. That'd probably be about 12 sessions a week, but a couple lifts a week, a couple hard ergs a week or hard boat sessions. And then the rest of that I would do UT2 on the erg or in the boat. And then, cross training. The big thing that really made it's obvious, but like technique, you know, that was where I found the biggest leaps in my speed, even to the back end of my career. There was a point when I felt like I had gotten technically, you know, as it sounds cocky to say, but like as good as I could have. I didn't think there was going to be any other big leaps I could make. I ended up rowing a double with a guy, Will Fletcher, who showed me a couple things, and you know, I made big steps on there. So in terms of like output for input, like technique is probably the one in the single in the boat that is the biggest difference maker. So, you know, as I was doing this, you know, starting off with this UT2 work, this low intensity work, from day one, you know, I'd make it very clear I want to be focusing very much on technique. The first thing for the erg would be improving connection and loading through my hips and actually suspending. I would learn how to do that. You know, that's probably the first thing. The second thing, after I improved connection and suspension of the body weight, it would probably be, you know, the sequencing and basically just doing legs, then back, then arms, and separating that. And the classic stuff that people always see is like legs and bodies at the same time, and just that you're shortening your stroke. So again, for context, I'm 6'1", so still tall, but not for a rower. But I would, you know, once I could get connected well and suspend well, I would then work on separating my leg drive from my body swing so that I could have a very long stroke. And then I would try and do that on the erg. I would just try and make that more relaxed, more flowing. And that's pretty simple. I think 2 areas, people can get very connected in the middle of the stroke, but people struggle to get connected when they're really compressed, and then they struggle to stay connected through the finish. So connection at the very front and connection at the very back, that's a big point for driving the erg scores down in terms of technique. In the boat, the first thing I would be working on would be, I think the biggest return for input would be just hit my mic there. Take my blades out square and then turn them feathered, and that's the biggest. When I was coaching beginners in person, that would be the place that people would find the most speed from, is just simply everybody would kind of like feather like that and sort of scoop up some water. The biggest difference maker, I think, any novice, even at a high level, take the blade out square, then turn it feathered. Like literally is that simple. Be able to do that at a high rate. You know, I would just nail that in and get that really clean pop where you're not dragging anything at the finish. So moving forward, in the boat technically wise, so assuming we're on about 10 to 12 sessions a week, I'd probably be. I have no idea how I'm going to structure this, to be honest, but we'll go with it. But basically, I would say once I got up to 10 to 12 sessions a week, I would then be looking. I'd probably look to ingrain a year or two at 10 to 12 sessions a week and make sure I maximize that. I would start pushing some of my session lengths to 75, 80, 90 minutes. I would still probably keep doing maybe 2 high intensity sessions a week, but really just pushing the volume and making sure that I also take rest periods. That was something when I'm coaching now that is the easiest way that we can find improvements for people. And rowing coaches and rowers are so afraid to take rest because it's obviously counterintuitive, but you look at other sports with actual investment and innovation in them, they all take rest. So that would probably be an important thing to remember as well. I would have not just rest days, I would have rest weeks roughly every 4 to 6 weeks. If you follow my Instagram content, you'll know I go on about this all the time. If you want to learn more about it, go and search on my YouTube the long-term planner on the Row Faster series. So okay, now where are we? Long-term, so taking the rest periods, a couple of years at 10 to 12 sessions a week. Let's go back to the technique now. Probably start to look at some mindset stuff as well. So with technique, the next thing for me would be again, Colin Williamson, forever stealing his tips on this and coaching people to do it now. I'm still waiting for his invoice when he's going to send it to me. Basically, tap down, very, very simple. Tap down with your hands. Keep your hands low as you go forward and keep them low, and then square early and then put the blade in on the way forward. The mistake that people make is I've got this new desk setup, so I'm not going to be able to go back all the way. I don't know if I like it yet. But anyways, the mistake people make is even if you take the blade out square, turn it feathered, they let the blade drop back onto the water and they just sort of scrape it along. And then when they get to the catch to square, obviously you're going to clip the water. So you have to lift the blade up, then turn it squared, then make it go in. And what ends up happening is you end up rowing like this and you just miss the water when you do that. Whereas if you have space, you can square and then boom, that simple movement. And what it looks like side on is you're kind of, if you're not rowing with shape, so I should explain, shape means tapping down enough with your hands. When you're rowing high and pushing your hands forward like that, to do that late square, you have to go down and then square and then up. And then right before you're putting in the blade, you have to do this weird flick. You get your arms going, you engage your upper body. You don't want that. When you're low, you can just square and lift straight up. So much more simple. The reason people don't like doing it is because the boat gets all tippy and unbalanced, and it doesn't feel nice. But it's not about feeling nice, it's about going fast, and it makes a big difference at high rates. Sorry, I've got my email open in the background and it's distracting me. Right, so that would be the next thing technically. Sequencing, okay, arms away first, then body. The next part I would be working on in the boat would be how I place the blade. So you could do a whole nother topic on this, but it would basically, when you're sitting still, the ideal catch is you get to the catch, you lift the blade straight up and it goes in. And when the boat is still, that will just go straight in like that. And when the water's not moving, there's no splash. When the water starts moving, when you're moving, that straight up and down motion, what you want, you're going to get that backsplash. If that hand motion shows what, if you get what I mean, that motion while you're moving creates backsplash. And it's one of those cases in a technical change where you can look for the outcome. You can force the outcome. It's kind of like, the opposite of if we wanted you to improve balance, we wouldn't just say, well, we'll just row with your blades off the water. We would say, work on taking your blades out clean and getting your weight down low. With the catch, the outcome of a correct catch is getting backsplash. So it's one of those cases actually where you can really force that. And what I would do, I would just work on actually getting that feeling of backing the spoons in and forcing the blade in. Make it very mechanical and deliberate. It will feel wrong when you do it. But once you get the hang of that, I would just then start relaxing a bit more and staying nice and loose and staying calm and dropping the blade in really nice and loose and just trying to add that sort of art. That's what we say when we're coaching. We're like, add that sort of magic to it as well, like that sort of flair and that smoothness and that flowing, timing that with the lift. Could totally go into this in full detail, but it's probably a video note for another day. But the next part from that, once you get the catch right, you should be tying in all the work you did on the erg, which is all about connection. If you can take the blade out clean, pop it out square and turn it feathered, row with shape so that you can keep your hands low and square early, and then place the blade on the way forward and get that backsplash and do it loose, and then row connected where you suspend and drive with your legs and open with your back and hang on it and have acceleration through the whole part of the stroke, and then repeat that. Do that really, really, really well. You will fly. So that's just a very simple way. And like, look, in terms of technique, I would just be cycling through those changes of the finish, the recovery, the catch, the drive, and just sort of work, start off at a 1 out of 10 for all of them, just nudge all of them up to a 2, and then go back to the start, all up to a 3. And that's like literally what I would do for my whole time trying to get back to like where I was on this like hypothetical video. The big thing with this, the technical stuff, people always forget is as soon as they get their stern attached on a race, or they're getting lined up to go down, head of the Charles or whatever, they go, race, I need to go as hard as I can, and they forget all these technical things that that make the difference. So for example, when I was racing trials, I learned that if I just row well, if I row clean, this is what I was saying to one of our athletes on camp, if I row clean where I take the blade out square, pop it out square, turn it feathered, and feel that kind of click, like very simple. I knew if I just like found that sort of like loose click at the finish, and then I had that click on the way forward when I squared early, that sort of like 1-2 like click sort of motion, if I had that feeling of shape and square, that I'd be rowing with really good cleanliness at the finish, good stability because I was taking the blade out clean. Squaring meant I could then place the blade on the way forward, get good connection, and if I would do that for a 5K trial, and it'd make a huge difference. But it took me so long to really start to value focusing on that. And what I noticed before I would go into races and trials and be like, I just have to work hard and push as hard as I can. What I learned was if I just go into trials and think about rowing in a way that gives myself the platform to work hard, that I will just end up working hard with all the adrenaline. And as I got better at that, I was then able to really like push myself because I had that platform. If you think about speed all the time and tension and pulling as hard as you can, you're engaging the wrong muscles the whole of a race. You really are going to struggle. And I think that's partially, a mindset thing as well, but a big reason why a lot of people struggle to push as hard in the boat as they do in the erg, because they just think it's the same as an erg. You need to keep that platform. And I think if you can focus more on rowing well, you'll give yourself that erg-like platform to really just drive it home. And so where are we now? So that would be the full technical explanation. That's probably all you need to know. I've heard coaches say that it takes you 6 years minimum to get to your full potential. I've heard of people that have done it in a lot less. I think Helen Glover, who is remember hearing her story, and that's what inspired me to start up rowing. She did it in 4, but going from beginner where you're going full in on this, you can do it in 6 to 8. So anyways, I would probably start to look at doing, again, here's the top secret training template that people like to keep secret, and teams that are out there that think this is a big secret. I won't name any names, but it's the training program I'd probably try to get into. The structure, again, this is me being full-time. I'm probably going to do another one of these videos, like how would I go about doing this when I'm limited on time, because I'm sure it's not very relevant to a lot of people. They don't have the privilege to be able to train full-time. But what I would do is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday morning, I would do normally 16, sometimes 20, rarely do 12K in the single. And then the second session on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I would do probably weights. And then the third session on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I'd probably do a shorter erg or something like that, like 12K or 16K. This is top secret stuff here, by the way. And then Wednesday morning, I would do Wednesday and Saturday, I do them pretty similar. I do like 12 to 16K in the single. And then second session on Wednesday and Saturday, I would do like a 30-minute or a 3x2K. I really like that structure. I found I trained really well in that. If I was looking to, let's just kind of go off on a total tangent here. If I was looking to maximize my time on like 6 sessions a week, which I think is doable for a lot of people, I would do, say I have a 90-minute training window, 6 times a week. So I would probably do UT2 on Mondays. I'd probably do high intensity on Tuesdays and couple that with a weight session and be very time effective. I would do the weights before the high intensity session, and obviously you're gonna have a bit of DOMs for the first few weeks, but you will learn how to do it. You're gonna have to make sacrifices when you're limited on training time. Okay, that's Tuesdays. You know, depending on what my week points were in my physiology at the time, that's what I'd be focusing on in those high intensity sessions. Wednesdays, I'd probably do either UT2 or UT1. And then Thursdays, I'd probably again do either UT2 or UT1. I'd alternate those. I'd probably make one of those, whichever day was the UT2 day, I'd make that an easier day, recovery, shorter volume as well. And then Fridays, I do the same as Tuesdays. Full body weights, you know, back squats, RDLs, bent forward row, bench press, shoulder press, and lots of core. Pretty simple. Three sets times 8 to 12 reps, something like that. And then Friday, and then another high intensity session. I'd maybe make that a more specific to what race I had coming up. So like one of those high intensity sessions would be around what my weak areas were. One of them would be what my what the race coming up would be. And then Saturdays, I'd probably go for like a really as long as I could go, basically. So there's a little mini tangent on what I would be doing if I was on 6 sessions a week. Yeah. And then, I mean, okay, let's go back to that structure of how many sessions per week was that? 3 times 12, 16, 18 sessions a week? No, that's not right. 16 sessions a week. I would do that until I got into the G. I would just keep doing that for years. The hard part is doing that consistently, and just rinse and repeat. Make sure I have recovery weeks. That's a big thing. Following that structure, follow all the technical stuff. It can be very simple. Like the hard thing is not overcomplicating it sometimes as well, and just actually doing it and doing it consistently. Let's talk about the side stuff now, if you want to. I shouldn't call this side stuff. The big one is mindset, which 100%. Mine was so bad for a time, like making up such bullshit excuses, constantly, you know, lying to my coach, saying I had an itchy throat or a sore back for like a couple years, and like training, barely could string 3 days of consistent training together. I would change the way I was approaching high intensity. I would go out in some sessions and just aim to fail and overpace it. Okay, this is me again, a whole nother video topic. I would overpace my high intensity. I would do a lot of visualization, like visualizing the changes that I want to make technically, pacing wise for a 2K, you know, even I would visualize, you know, failing and practicing failing. That was a big thing for me, actually, was, you know, making sure that I just aim to fail in training and just get used to crossing that line. The analogy we like to use all the time when we're coaching is racing is about getting as close to that line as possible. So to get as close to that line as possible, you need to know where that line is very well. And just imagine there's a bunch of like dust or dirt on the line. And every time you fail and cross that line, you're just brushing a bit of dust off it. And then you can get to a point where you know exactly where it is. You know exactly how to get right on it and red line. So, and then just not being afraid to fail is a big thing, I think, for me as well. Is like, not being afraid of it and seeing it as a positive. But yeah, again, the mindset stuff, most important thing by far that I improved, I'd say. And that the most common thing amongst all the best rowers is good mindset. You know, different technique, different training programs. Mindset is number one. The most consistent thing, most important thing. Okay, last big one, probably nutrition. Like, you know, just make sure you're eating enough carbs. Make sure you're eating enough fruit and veg. Yeah, you want to get protein in as well. But carbs, simple carbohydrates. Don't shy away from sugars. It's a bunch of bullshit out there. Obviously, if you're medically, like, you know, you need to avoid it. That's totally fine. But you know, don't be shy of it. Sorry, I was just checking the time. I've got a call coming up. And then, yeah, eat a lot of carbs, eat a lot of fruit and veg. It helps with recovery. Drink a lot of water, stay hydrated, sleep 9 hours minimum a night. That's when I was doing that training. I'd be sleeping 9 hours. Again, if you're restricted on time, that's not realistic. I would try and sleep more consistently. I would avoid caffeine after midday. You know, try and have a consistent bedtime and wake time. Have consistent behavior before bed as well. That's pretty key for telling your body what's going on in the circadian rhythm. And then yeah, just do a lot of that and rinse and repeat. That would be how I would get from beginner again to where I was, which was 551 in the GB team. So yeah. Let me know what you think, guys. If there's any questions, you know, happy to talk about this stuff. And I actually quite like doing this format where I can just end it and hit upload and just blather away. So let me know what you'd like to hear more of. If there's anything I touched on there you'd like to see more content on. It's only going to be a few hundred views in this one, so there's a good chance you're going to be able to influence the next one if you found it valuable. Yeah, if you do like it as well, make sure you like. I squirm every time I say that. But yeah, like the video and subscribe, and that helps me. Okay, right. Bye. So much easier.